Little girl slapped $2 soggy on the bar. I need you to kill my stepfather. The room froze. Logan stepped forward. What's your name, sweetheart? Emma, she said. He's drunk. If we wait, my mom won't see morning. She gripped a torn teddy tighter and glanced at the door. I brought something. Logan kept his voice even. You're safe here. He shrugged off his jacket and set it over her shoulders. Where are you hurt? She touched her ribs and winced. It crunches when I breathe. Stitch, Logan called. The medic came fast, eyes already reading bruises. 2 fingers, he said to Emma. Press here. She pressed, her face pinched. Cracked at least, Stitch muttered. She needs imaging. A bottle thumped 2 seats down. Diesel leaned forward, jaw tight. Enough talk. He jerked his chin at the door. Point me to him. Logan didn't look away from Emma. Not like that. He lowered to one knee. Where's your mom? Trailer park at Hollow Creek, she said. Blue door with a dent. He locked me out when the song came on. Her eyes flicked to the neon bleeding red on wet glass. I ran here because you're loud, and people say loud people win. Who told you that? Logan asked. My teacher says you speak up or you disappear. Logan's fingers brushed the teddy. You said you brought something. She hugged the bear tighter. Just something. If you take me back, I'll show you. The jukebox clicked off. Rain pounded like it had a deadline. A phone on the bar buzzed. A text flashed. Hollow Creek disturbance. Officers en route. Screaming reported. Emma's breathing hitched. He promised he wouldn't stop tonight. Logan stood. We ride. Smart, fast, no heroics. He looked around the room. We do not start a war. We end a night. Engines fired. The room emptied to a rumble. Stitch settled Emma in a van and buckled her in with careful hands. Squeeze my arm if anything hurts. She nodded and kept one fist twisted in the teddy's ear like it anchored her to the earth. They rolled through black streets and rain, bikes ahead like a moving wall. Emma watched the taillights. Are they bad guys? She asked. Not tonight, Stitch said. Tonight they're yours. Hollow Creek showed itself with cheap metal roofs and one-way eyes behind curtains. Blue and red lit the lane. 3 cruisers angled across gravel, an ambulance idling. Logan's bike slid to a stop at the tape. He stepped into the rain and lifted his hands. Easy, he said. The sheriff walked out from the wash of light. Logan. 1 word, 2 histories. The child's mother, Logan said, tipping his head toward the van. We're here for her. You can stand, the sheriff said. You don't advance. He scanned the riders, then the van. She with you? Here, Stitch answered through the cracked window. Stay put, the sheriff said. Let us work. A paramedic stepped from the trailer. Blood brightened a white wrap on a man's shoulder as they loaded him onto a gurney. The man laughed without smiling and spat a word that made the night uglier. The doors slammed. The laugh cut off. Emma's breath broke. That's him, she whispered. Don't let him look at me. Eyes on me, Stitch said. Only me. On the porch, a woman sat under a blanket with a split lip and a cut in her hairline. Emma leaned so far forward the seatbelt locked. Mom, she said, a sound too thin to cross the rain. The sheriff clocked it and spoke to the deputy. Bring the mother down. Slowly. He turned to Logan. No circles, no crowding. One of you. You. Logan walked beside Emma as Stitch opened the door. She slid out small and sure, one hand still glued to the bear. The mother stood on shaky legs when she saw her child and reached, then swayed. A paramedic caught her elbow. Don't take her, Emma's mother said through teeth she held together to keep them from chattering. Please. A car crept into the lane, 2 men inside scanning faces and patches. Diesel drifted half a step, and so did 3 others, not touching, just becoming a line. The car paused, weighed the math, and reversed into darkness. A compact sedan arrived quick. A woman stepped out with a clear file and a tired face. "Mara," she said to the sheriff, flashing credentials. "Emergency pediatric foster. I was called." The social worker appeared like a rule book walking. "We haven't processed anything," she said. "The child comes with me." Mara met her eyes. "You can process in my kitchen while she warms up. I'm certified. You can follow." "It's irregular," the social worker said, voice steady because it had to be. "It's legal," Mara answered, "and it's raining on a child." The sheriff looked at Logan, and something old in both men softened without breaking. He nodded once. "Do it. I want eyes on every turn." Emma didn't move. "What about my mom?" she asked. "Your mom needs a doctor and a place where nobody can knock," Mara said. "You need a bed. We start there." Emma glanced at Logan. "Will you come?" "I'll stand outside," he said. "All night if you want." The social worker escorted them to cars. Deputies followed. Logan walked back to Diesel. "No bar talk, no victory laps," he said. "We do not scare the neighborhood. We stand quiet." Diesel grunted. "What if cousins show? Then we stay quiet louder." At Mara's house, warmth and light arrived like a promise. Stitch taped Emma's ribs and taught her to press a pillow to her side when she coughed. Mara made tea she didn't expect a child to drink. The social worker sat at the table with forms and a pen that clicked too much. Logan stood in the doorway, big but not blocking. He looked like someone who'd learned to take up space without taking air. Emma watched him the way a kid in the dark watches a door frame, just to know it's still there. "What happens to my mom?" she asked. "Hospital," Mara said. "Then a safe place. The sheriff will make sure she's not alone." "He doesn't stop," Emma said. "He says the music covers it." "What music?" the social worker asked. Penn paused. "The loud kind," Emma said. "The one that says don't look down." Logan's jaw worked. "How long has this been happening?" Emma stared at the bear. "Since the winter with no heater." Stitch finished the tape and stepped back. "Breathe in." She did. Again. She nodded. "Hurts less." "Good," Stitch said. "You're tougher than half this room." Emma set the teddy in her lap, thumb on a ragged seam. Then she pulled her hand away, like the seam might speak out of turn. "If I show you something," she asked, "will you promise not to let him hear it first?" "We don't show monsters anything," Logan said. "We show the people who put monsters in cages." The social worker clicked her pen again, then caught herself and set it down. "You don't have to share tonight," she said. "You can rest." Emma bit the inside of her cheek. "I didn't run here to rest." "Then you share when you're ready," Mara said. "Not a second before." The doorbell cut the quiet. Diesel's voice drifted from outside. "We're here if you need a car moved, a truck counted, or a shadow stared at." Mara looked at Logan. "Your men plan to sleep on asphalt?" "They've slept on worse," Logan said, "and they'll do it quieter than any sermon." The social worker finished the last line and slid papers across. "Sign here," she told Mara. "Initial there. Date." Emma looked between the adults. "What's that mean?" "It means you stay with me tonight," Mara said, "and for a while after, while the sheriff does the hard parts." Emma nodded, then frowned. "He has friends," she said. "They watch windows. They say my mom made him angry by existing." "Existing's not a crime," Logan said. Emma lifted the teddy to her ear like it could whisper courage. He says, I don't remember things right, she said. He says I make up storms. Storms outside, Mara said. Your memory is inside. It's yours. Emma's eyes flicked to the seam again. She pressed a finger there, then pulled back, choosing. I brought something, she said, voice small but steady. Not for him, for later, for people who need to hear. Good, Logan said. We'll keep it quiet until it's loud enough to matter. Mara stood. Bedtime, she said softly. You need sleep to be brave again tomorrow. I can't sleep, Emma said. He plays the music in my head. Then we traded, Mara said. She flicked on a tiny kitchen radio and tuned it to static that sounded like rain. This is our noise now. Emma lay back on the couch with the pillow hugged to her ribs. She watched Logan in the doorway like a lighthouse. If I fall asleep, she said, you won't leave? I'll be right outside, he said. Promise? Promise. Her eyes lowered and lifted, then finally closed. The rain softened. The social worker packed her pen. Stitch stretched his back and rolled his neck. Mara dimmed the light to a kind twilight. A car rolled by slow outside, then another. Diesel's low voice floated in. Keep moving, he told the night. Nothing to see. Logan stepped onto the porch and pulled the door shut behind him. He looked at the line of bikes under street light and at the dark end of the block where trouble liked to practice its aim. He folded his arms and set his feet. On the table inside, the teddy sat upright, its seam rough, its button eye proud. Emma slept with one hand touching it, just enough to know it hadn't gone anywhere. Mara watched her breathing even out and whispered to Stitch. Tomorrow we talk to the sheriff and the prosecutor. And the teacher, Stitch said. Someone taught her to run toward light. Mara nodded. Tomorrow, she said again, as if the word could build a bridge. The storm thinned to a hush and the house held its balance. Somewhere down the block, a truck slowed, then accelerated. Diesel coughed once, the crew shifting their weight like wolves who had decided not to hunt, not tonight. Emma's fingers twitched over the teddy's seam. She didn't wake. She didn't need to. The night kept watch without blinking. And the something she brought waited, silent, exactly where she'd hidden it, patient as truth. Morning found the house quiet but alert. Emma woke to the smell of toast and the murmur of low voices. She sat up, one hand on her ribs, the other on the teddy. She looked at Logan, still in the doorway, like he hadn't moved all night. You stayed, she said. I said I would. She sat straighter, jaws set. I'm ready. Mara pulled a chair to the table and nodded to the social worker, who had returned with coffee and a laptop. Stitch sat nearby, fingers laced. Logan didn't sit. Emma set the teddy down, turned it face up, and traced the rough seam with her thumb. He never checks my bear, she said. He thinks it's childish. Childish saves lives sometimes, Logan said. Emma pinched the seam open, dug gently into the stuffing, and slid out a scratched purple MP3 player. She set it in her palm like it might drop through. I don't know if I did it right. You did, Mara said. You did everything right. She plugged it into the laptop. Folders appeared, dates, times, each named with a shaky hand that had learned to be brave. Play number 4, Emma said. That's the one when the glass broke. Mara pressed play. The room filled with muffled bass and a man slurred shouting. A woman's voice begged. A child cried, "Please stop," and the volume of the music rose to drown it. Emma pressed the pillow to her ribs and watched Logan's jaw tighten. Mara stopped the clip and looked at the social worker, who was pale and furious and suddenly very efficient. "We take this straight to the sheriff," the social worker said. "Then to the DA." She looked at Emma. "You are very brave." Emma swallowed and nodded. "There are more." "There will be no more," Logan said, and he meant it. They drove back to the station in daylight, a different kind of courage than the night. The sheriff met them in a briefing room, jaws set, eyes tired. The DA, a woman with a clean braid and a voice like a gavel, joined, sleeves rolled. Mara played 2 minutes. The sheriff stopped it with a palm on the table. "That's enough," he said. "We have what we need." "We have more than we need," the DA said. "We have a child who did our job for us. We're filing additional counts: child endangerment, aggravated assault, attempted murder. We'll ask the judge to spike bail so high he won't even see a number, he'll see a mountain." "He has friends," Emma said. "They watch windows." "We'll watch back," the sheriff said. By afternoon, the charges were filed. The stepfather, bandaged and cuffed, sneered in a courthouse hallway until he saw a man he'd never met before, Diesel, standing beside a water fountain with hands folded, eyes unreadable. The sneer turned into a glare that slid off a wall. Bail came down like a door slamming. No release. Mr. Garvey, the neighbor, sat on a metal chair in the same corridor, hat in his hands, shaking like he hadn't stopped since last night. Logan crouched in front of him. "You're not alone," he said. "I fired to scare him," Garvey whispered. "Didn't think it'd—" "You kept a woman alive," Logan said. "We'll make sure the court hears that with both ears." He handed him a card. "Call this lawyer. Tell her we're paying." Garvey stared at the card like it was a lifeline. "Why?" he asked. "Because you did the hardest thing," Logan said. "You stepped in when it counted." News traveled. Friends of the stepfather didn't like the new math. That night, Mara's street saw a slow parade. 2 pickups, 1 car with the muffler too loud, faces pressed to windows. The bikes were already lined along the curb, silent, angled like shields. Diesel called softly. "We've got company." "No noise," Logan said. "No movement unless they step on the lawn." The first truck idled, inching forward. Light swept across Mara's porch. Emma stood behind the curtain, heart beating in her fingers, watching a procession of men who weren't as brave as their talk. Diesel unfolded from a chair and stood in the street with his hands open and empty, looking straight through the windshield. The driver looked at Logan, then at the sheriff's cruiser parked at the far corner, and did the arithmetic badly. He revved anyway. Logan didn't move. He didn't blink. He simply lowered his chin like a gate coming down. More bikes rolled in from the cross street, 3, then 4, then more, each parking without a sound, a tide without foam. Engines off. Presence on. The sheriff drove up slow and stopped door to door with the truck. He didn't step out. He just lowered the window and said, "This isn't your night." The truck reversed. The second one followed. The muffler car lingered long enough to see Diesel smile, a tired kind of smile that says, "You're outnumbered by better choices." It left. Inside, Emma exhaled. "They always came back before," she said. "Not this time," Logan said. "Not with this many eyes." The next day, the DA brought Emma and Mara into a small office with chairs that squeaked. "We're moving fast," she said. "Your recordings will carry this case. We'll blur your name in public filings for as long as we can." Emma nodded. "He'll still hear me." "He can hear the judge instead," the DA said. The stepfather tried to snarl in court, tried to bait, tried to glare holes through glass. When the judge read the charges and the requested bail, his face lost color. The MP3 files, reduced to transcripts, sat like stones in a stack. His public defender leaned in, whispered. The man swallowed. He stared at Emma as she sat in the back with Mara and Logan, then looked away first. The DA's eyebrow rose just enough to be a victory. The judge banged the gavel. The doors shut on the man's chances. Emma slept 2 nights in a row, though she woke twice with a small cry and a hand flying to her ribs. On the 3rd night, Diesel called at 2 a.m. "Black thorns at the motel," he said. "They think the mom's there." Mara looked to Logan. He was already standing. They moved the mother that morning, hospital bracelet still on, to a safer location the sheriff arranged, an apartment with a lock that clicked like confidence. The night ravens formed an escort. Not flashy, just inexorable. The motel's manager called later and said men had come, found nothing, and left angry at nobody in particular. The noise had nowhere to land. Still, trouble doesn't retire clean. One cousin showed up alone at a grocery store lot, shoulders high, voice low. Logan stood between him and the cart Emma was pushing with Mara. "You think you can hide her," the cousin said. "She's not hiding," Logan answered. "She's shopping." "You think this is over?" "I think you're out of road," Logan said. "Turn around." The cousin smirked, stepped closer, and found Diesel already behind him, not touching, just there. He looked at Diesel's hands, then at the security camera above the door, then at Emma's face, unafraid despite the ribs, and flinched at the wrong thing, his reflection in the glass. He walked away pretending he hadn't. The DA called a week later. "He's taking a deal," she said. "Years. Many." Emma didn't smile. She set down the phone and stared at the wall. "He'll still be there in my head," she said. "Then we make your head louder with better voices," Mara replied. Mr. Garvey got a note in the mail. No charges. The club threw him a quiet barbecue in his narrow backyard and refused to let him do the dishes. He cried once near the grill, wiped his eyes with a paper towel, and said nothing anyone could hear. He didn't have to. The club passed a hat for Emma's mother, paid a month's rent, and found a therapist who wasn't afraid of hard stories. Emma visited after school to water a stubborn plant that didn't know when to quit. Sometimes she sat on the stoop with Logan and asked about old scars. He'd say, "That one is from a stupid choice." And she'd say, "Which one?" And he'd answer, "Exactly." Spring slid in. Emma learned to ride a bicycle without wobbling. Logan jogged beside her, pretending not to be winded. She fell once, skinned her knee, and laughed because it was the right kind of pain, the kind that tells you you're moving. On a Tuesday, Mara found Emma at the table, the teddy between them. The MP3 player retired to a drawer. "You don't need it anymore?" Mara asked. "I needed it when nobody listened," Emma said. "Now people do." "People do," Mara agreed. "And for the record, if you ever make a podcast, you've got the instincts." Emma squinted. "What's a podcast?" "Another way to be heard," Mara said. Years pass quickly when safety becomes normal. Emma grew into the kind of student who sat in front, took notes like promises, and raised a hand when others stared at desks. She wrote an essay called "Walls Can't Muffle Everything," and read it into a microphone in a gym that still smelled like varnish and sneakers. When she graduated later, not from middle school or high school, but from a building with columns and too many steps, Logan and Mara and Diesel stood in the back. She walked across a stage to collect a law degree, and when everyone clapped, Logan did what he always did when he was proud. He folded his arms and tried not to smile. He failed. Afterward, she handed him a small frame. Inside, the teddy sat on a kitchen table, stitched seam neat, button eyes bright. A tag hung from its ear. "For the family I found in the storm." He cleared his throat and nodded like words would make it less true. That evening, the teddy wasn't in the frame anymore. It hung on a wall at the broken chain, not as a trophy, but as a reminder. Beneath it, 2 soggy bills were flattened and preserved, not for their worth, but for their weight. When someone asked, the regulars would point to the wall and say, "That's not decoration, that's a promise." Sometimes, Emma stopped by on a late drive home from the courthouse. She'd sit on a stool, sip water with lemon, and tell Logan about kids who needed more than statutes. He would listen like he'd listened the first night, saying little, hearing everything. When she left, she'd pat the teddy on the head like a superstition that had become a tradition. If this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe, like, and drop a comment with your thoughts. It helps more people hear stories that matter, and it tells the algorithm we're worth keeping around. And if you know someone who needs this kind of courage, share this video with them right now. Sometimes the ending isn't fireworks. It's quiet. It's a locked door that stays locked. It's a child sleeping through a storm because the storm isn't inside the house anymore. It's a gang of men who learned the hardest truth late, but decided it wasn't too late to live it. Strength isn't what you do with your fists. It's what you refuse to do with them. If you're still watching, thank you for sticking with Emma. If you want more stories where mercy wins and noise loses, hit subscribe, ring the bell, and tell us in the comments what part stayed with you. Your voice keeps this channel alive, and your attention saves the next Emma we might be lucky enough to find.